The United States, where everyone is gearing up for the next Democratic presidential debate in Nevada. Taking to the stage in Las Vegas will be Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire's first real presence in the campaign, which has previously been dominated more by his advertising than his campaigning on the ground. Joining us live now is Miranda Devine, columnist at the Daily Telegraph. Thank you for your time, Miranda. What do you make of the team taking to the stage in Nevada?
Oh, hi, Annalise. Look, it'll be absolutely fascinating because this is Michael Bloomberg's first outing, his first entry actually into the boxing ring. But he's somehow managed to get up to number 2 in one of the national polls. He's certainly rocketing up there, and that's just with his money. He's spent reported about $420 million of his own money so far just in advertising. And, you know, making himself popular in these states before he joins the race proper on Super Tuesday in March. But this is quite unusual that he's decided that he's going to come into this debate tomorrow night. He's not blooded like all the other candidates who've been tromping around New Hampshire and Iowa and, you know, have appeared in numerous debates before. Unlike them, he's not blooded, and also because he's now seen as a threat, everyone's just tipped all this Oppo research onto the table, and he's now haunted by all sorts of racist and sexist things he's supposedly said in the past, you know, in quite a long life, in public life anyway. He was mayor for 12 years, for instance, in New York. So it'd be very interesting to see how he performs. He's not the most charismatic person. He's not warm, and so I think this is in a way make or break for him. It's the first time we really will have seen him.
Absolutely. I've seen people say that he skipped places like Iowa because he wouldn't have that ability to be on the ground with farmers, talking to them kind of one-on-one in that warm, empathetic way you're saying. But what will be really interesting too is seeing how the other candidates interact with him, because he's not far off the type of a Donald Trump. He's eccentric, incredibly wealthy, very aggressive personality. And so we've seen Elizabeth Warren's already come out calling him an egomaniac billionaire. It'll be a test for some of the candidates too, like Pete Buttigieg, about how they interact with someone like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Democrats are split really between the radical socialist wing, represented by Bernie Sanders, and then all the moderates clumped up together with Joe Biden seeming to fade away. And that's the lane that Bloomberg is entering, very crowded. So, you know, it's in Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar and Biden's interest to go after Bloomberg. But at the same time, Bloomberg is just going after Sanders. And of course, the Democratic establishment is horrified about the Sanders ascendancy because, you know, he's pulled the party already so far to the left as to make it unelectable. But the interesting thing about that really is that when you look at Bernie Sanders, and I've been to his rallies and I've seen him on the ground in New Hampshire and Iowa, he generates that same sort of excitement and huge crowds that Donald Trump does. He's the populist on the left. He's the doppelganger of Trump, if you like. And, you know, the other night in Nevada, he managed to get 17,000 people to one of his rallies. I mean, that's Trumpian numbers. And these people are so passionate about him. They're young. And they're just like in 2016 when Bernie Sanders was diddled out of the nomination by Hillary Clinton. His supporters now are fully expecting that to happen. He's spoken about it. They're all paranoid, and they're promising great retribution if that were to happen at the upcoming Democratic convention in Milwaukee in July.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about an election that's basically decided on 170,000 swing voters, they could be easily isolated by someone that strong on the left. But just before you go, can we ask about these presidential pardons coming from President Donald Trump? He certainly has a bit of a method to who he decides to pardon.
Yes, look, he's pardoned about 11 people or commuted their sentences, and some of them are, you know, people who've been perhaps given too long sentences for drugs, unknown people. But he's also pardoned the swamp, effectively. There's a guy who's a former governor of Illinois who was serving a 14-year sentence, of which he served 8 years. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, even though my colleagues have told me it's Rod Blagojevich or something. I got that wrong. I did ask my colleagues before I came in how to pronounce it.
I'll take you as the authority on that, yeah.
That is the swamp. Yeah, but this guy represents the swamp. He tried to sell Barack Obama's former Senate seat, and I think something like 4 of the last 8 governors in Illinois have ended up going to jail on these sort of swampish charges. This is the exact type of political corruption that Donald Trump said when he campaigned that he was going into office to wipe out. And here he is pardoning this guy who is a Democrat. But he said today, Donald Trump, when he was giving a sort of impromptu press conference next to his aircraft, he said, oh, well, you know, he saw his wife on television and thought she seemed quite nice, pleading for him to be pardoned. And also he appeared on The Apprentice with him one time. You know, he said, I don't know him very well, but he seems like a nice guy. So that seems to be all it takes.
Good Lord, America can be a strange place. Miranda Devine, thank you for that cross live there from New York.